Welcome, everybody, to our very special Friday edition of Tim at 10. Hope everyone had a wonderful week and your back to school is going well. You're ready for the cooler weather that's supposed to be coming next week, so that's super exciting right there. We are here today to kind of talk about some of these legislative changes that happened in our legislative session in 2023 and how that's going to impact the child care minimum standards and how it's going to impact the operation of your program. I was planning to hit the pause button and wait a little bit to do this webinar, but I was receiving so many phone calls and so many emails from people with some anxiety and seeking some guidance and understanding. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and do a preview webinar of what this is going to look like in the minimum standards, what it's going to look like to your day-to-day operations, all of that good stuff. So with that being said, I need everyone to really understand that these pieces of legislation that were passed in our 2023 legislative session have now been turned over to child care regulations for implementation. Even though we have a September 1st effective date on many of these items, child care regulation still has to write the standards for this. So we still have a pretty lengthy process that is going to take place in order for child care licensing, child care regulations to put these into standards. Y'all might have noticed in the 14-page document that was sent out by child care regulations that on almost every single piece of legislation, you might have noticed that child care regulations and the Texas Administrative Code will write the standards and they will be available for public comment before they're actually put into place. So we're going to see a lot of technical assistance that is given on some of these action items, before they actually go into the standards. So those of you that may not be familiar with this process, this is kind of the way it works, all right? So this is not anything out of the ordinary. This is normal, standard protocol whenever we have legislation like this. So even though we've got some pretty good guidance from child care regulation on how they plan to implement some of these changes, we still just don't have the actual language that's going to go in the minimum standards just yet, all right? So it's going to be very important for everyone to just breathe and practice patience and practice the power of acceptance. We've got this, and we can handle this. There's really nothing here that is going to rock your world or really change your day-to-day operation. There's about 3 items that you're going to need to put some processes in place, but it's 100% manageable, all right? So don't stress about this too much. There's really only one piece of legislation that might create definitely some policy or process changes within your operation. For some of you, and a lot of you, it may not change anything at all. All right. So we're just going to kind of go through this. If you have the 14-page document that was emailed from child care regulations available, that would be helpful as we go through this. If you don't have that document, don't worry about it. It's probably confusing for a lot of people to read anyways. We're just going to go line by line, bill by bill, and we're going to talk about these things right here and kind of just talk about what you can be doing to start implementing and start preparing your program to meet these expectations. Once again, and I'm probably going to say this like 20 times in this little bitty webinar today, nothing is 100% set in stone yet. Even though the bills have been passed, they are signed into law, child care regulations still has to write this into the standards, and we just don't know exactly what that language is going to look like, but we've got a 99% view of what it's probably going to look like, all right? And I don't think this is going to take our whole hour, so I think this is going to be pretty quick, Okay, so the first thing is House Bill 59, and that pertains to water safety. And this is an amendment to a piece of legislation that was already put in place. But basically, any of you that have a swimming pool on site, or any of you that take your children on a field trip to swim, all right? Basically, you're going to have to get a written statement from the parent or guardian of that child stating whether or not the child is able to swim, or if there is a known risk with that child being submerged in water. All right. This is a practice that many of us, we've been already doing for 20 plus years, that, before we take a child on a swimming field trip or put them in a swimming pool, we have the parent sign off on their ability to swim, or what is their skill level with swimming. It's just now going to be in law. It's going to be in the standards. All right. So if you do not have a swimming pool on site, or if you do not take your children swimming, this is going to be not applicable to you. All right. So what House Bill 59 is, basically you're going to have the parents that are going to sign off that their child can swim, or if there is a known risk to swimming for that particular child. It also is going to amend some of the safety protocols that are already out there, that you need to have a certified flotation device available for the child. Again, most people already do this. It's just going into the standards and into the chapter. A Coast Guard approved flotation device that is available to that child. And then we're probably going to see them enhance the supervision part of swimming. So you're going to see that right there. All right. So again, House Bill 59 should not really affect you too much. Most of you are already doing this. Most of you probably don't have swimming pools or take your children on swimming field trips. That one should be easy breezy. All right. Senate Bill 29. This one came to no surprise to anyone. It actually came down from a federal level, and then also it kind of piggybacks on some executive orders that we had here in the state of Texas during the COVID pandemic. But Senate Bill 29 basically is for government entities, and it's only for government entities. And so basically this is going to prohibit imposing masks, vaccines, those type of things to individuals in that government entity. Now, again, if you are not a government entity, then Senate Bill 29 does not apply to you. Those of you that are part of a government entity like Head Start, or a military child care base, you're already very familiar with these expectations. And so it's just basically written into law now. You've already been doing this. As far as the child care minimum standards, there really won't be any changes or additions to the child care minimum standards because child care licensing doesn't address this currently in the minimum standards. That's all done by DSHS. So shouldn't have much of an impact for you right there. Okay. The next thing we have here is Senate Bill 510. And Senate Bill 510 has to do with confidentiality. All right. Once again, this is an amendment to a already existing piece of legislation and law that certain pieces of information on individuals is kept strictly confidential, mainly pertaining to permit holders and governing bodies. All right. So whenever you fill out your operating permit, when you fill out your governing body designation, your controlling persons documentation, you have to disclose a lot of personal information on those forms. Already in existence, and individuals, obviously, their home address, their telephone number, their email address, their social security number, all of those all of that pieces of information, date of birth, has to be kept confidential and cannot be shared by other agencies. They are just adding to this driver's license, state identification numbers, passport numbers, emergency contact information, and any payment information that's being made on behalf of that license or designation. All right, so this is probably going to go more behind the scenes, and once again, really won't have anything to do with your day-to-day operation of your program. It's just basically keeping a lot of that information private and confidential. Okay, so shouldn't have to worry about that one too much. All right, now, everyone take a deep breath. You can handle this. Here is the one that's got everyone on the edge of their seat and really, really anxious, and that is Senate Bill 1098, okay? And there's a lot of different moving pieces to Senate Bill 1098, and this has to do with parent rights, all right? Now, currently in the child care minimum standards, probably about half of these items are already in here. What parents have a right to for their child. They are just simply adding several other items that are going to be very anxious for a lot of people right here. Letitia, I'm not there yet. If you could just hit the pause button, we're going to get to that right there here in just a little bit, okay? And y'all, if you do post a comment or a question in the chat screen, you need to keep it short. Because otherwise it takes me a while to read it, and that kind of takes away from our webinar and creates blank airtime right there. All right. So yes. So on the parent rights right here, obviously parents have a right to file a complaint against their child care facility. They have a right to review any public record that is accessible, meaning your compliance history, if you're placed on corrective action, any of that stuff. Of course, parents have a right to review their child's file. They have a right to review. They don't have a right to take, right? Any of those documents are considered business documents, but they can review them. That's always been in our standards. It's been there for a long time. Obviously, the center's compliance history, that's right there on the website, so they have a right to review that. All right. With court orders, this again is no different than what's already been in existence. When you have a child that has a court order on file, you're required to follow that court order exactly as listed. All right. I do have a webinar already on my website on custody issues. If you need more information on that, I would refer you to that particular website. But basically, and it kind of follows up on Letitia's question over here, you're going to follow that court order. All right. And so that's what you're going to do right there. The only person that can change a court order is a judge. All right. So a parent does not have the right to change their own court order. But once again, I would refer you to my webinar on custody issues if you need more information on that right there. Let me just look at this. All right. All right. Of course, obviously, we are required to give parents, contact information for child care regulations. That is not anything new right here. Here's where it gets different, and this is where I need y'all to breathe. All right. A parent has a right to inspect any video recording of an alleged incident of abuse and neglect involving a child, all right, provided that the video recording is available. And y'all, that's going to be the key part right there. Is the video recording available? If the video recording is not available, it's not available, and you can't be cited for that. All right. Many of you don't have cameras in your classroom. You don't have recordings. So obviously you wouldn't have video recordings available at that point. Those of you that do have video cameras in your classrooms, your data is probably only saved for a very limited amount of time. Depending on the storage that you have on your device, you may only keep video footage for 7 to 10 days. That is the average right there. So once that time frame passes, unless you physically save that video recording, it's probably going to erase. So if a parent is asking for video recording that has already gone away, it's not available. All right? So don't stress about that too much. Here's the other piece of the video recording that is really, really imperative for everyone to understand. The parent or guardian does not retain any part of the video that includes a child that doesn't belong to them. Okay, so if there are other children in that video, then the parent cannot take a copy of it. They can only receive a copy of the video footage of their particular child. All right? And then if there are other children that are included in the video footage, the parent or the guardian of the other children receive prior notice from the facility before that is shown to the parent. Okay? So if you have a parent that is requesting video footage, you're going to have to look at that first and see, are there other children in that video footage? And before you can show it to that parent, you're going to have to let the other parents and guardians of that child know. That's going to get complicated, y'all, and that's going to open up a lot of can of worms. Okay? So I completely understand everybody's anxiety over this. It's going to be problematic, but we probably already deal with this already. It's just the getting the permission from the other parents or letting them know, that type of thing, and then having to tell this parent that is alleging abuse or neglect, well, you're going to have to wait because there's a couple of steps that we have to take before we can show you this video footage. We have to review it to make sure other children are not in it, and then we have to let those parents know. That's going to take time. All right? So this is going to be a process, y'all. So, I've already received several phone calls and emails from people saying, well, I'm just going to take the cameras out of my classroom. Y'all, if that's what you choose to do, that's your business decision, all right? Or you can kind of enhance your policies and processes, enhance your parent handbook to let them know what the process looks like so that nobody is blindsided. That's probably a good route to take right there. All right. That's the one that's got a lot of people up. Now, you do need to be familiar with this Parents Guide to Rights or Provider's Guide to Parents' Rights. You can download this off of licensing's website, and you're going to need to include this in your parent handbook. If you go to my website, timthetrainer.com, and you go to Documents, I have already posted a sample policy on parents' rights. And it's basically this form, all right? So it's easy breezy. Don't stress out too much about this, all right? You got to make them aware. Tanya is seeking permission or make them aware. If you look, it says the parent or guardian of any other child in the video received prior notice from the facility. All right, so it's not so much that you're getting permission from them, but you're making them aware. But you have to make them aware prior to showing that video footage. Something else that I want to add to this, I had a really good conversation with child care regulations a couple of days ago, a contact that I have kind of higher up in the agency, because the other thing that I believe is going to be a little problematic here is when it talks about inspecting any video recording of an alleged incident of abuse and neglect. That's when the parent has the right to review the video footage. But when we're talking about everyday behavior issues or minor incidents and cuts and scratches and boo-boos, that's not included here, all right? So it's only when there is an alleged incident of abuse and neglect. And what you might want to do here is go back to the Texas Administrative Code and kind of read up on what is alleged abuse and neglect. And that's what they're going to be leaning on right there. Okay? But your everyday behaviors, your everyday minor bumps and bruises, that is not what they're talking about. It's only alleged abuse and neglect situations. Now, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of this right now, all across the country. The allegations of abuse and neglect are at an all-time high right now. So, probably a good idea to enhance your training and professional development on composure and demonstrating competency and maintaining self-control in the classroom, because we got to keep the children safe, and we've got to make sure that our employees are properly trained and supported so that we don't get these allegations. We want our children to be safe right there. All right. Christine is asking, if you state that your video is for surveillance only, do you still have to do this? Well, what it's going to come back to is the recording available? What you call it is what you call it, but do you have that recording and is it available? All right. And ask yourself, is the recording available? It's going to stop right there. You can fill in the blanks on that right there. All right. Letitia's asking, does it have to be an allegation by a client, or can it be through child care regulations or CPS? It can be either. So again, when you go to the language right here, it's just an alleged incident of abuse and neglect. So, we are talking about parents' rights right here. They're going to, CCR and CPS is going to try to piggyback on this, I have a feeling. This is where it's going to be interesting to see how they write this into the language. All right. There you go. So Senate Bill 1098, y'all, we can handle this. It's like I said, it's nothing more than what we've already been dealing with. It's just in writing now. All right. So that's the one that's got everyone really, really stressed out. Okay, I don't know. And those of you that are talking about just removing your cameras, that's a business decision that you're going to have to make right there. Or we can just move forward and deal with it as a new day. All right, there you go. Senate Bill 1242 is an interesting one to me. I completely understand the intent behind 1242. I'm actually surprised that it passed, but I don't know. But Senate Bill 1242 is basically going to be an amendment to when a director can train their own staff. So if you look currently in the child care minimum standards, it says that a director may train their own staff as long as they are in good standing with child care regulations, meaning you're not on corrective action. Basically what 1242 is going to do is it's going to amend that rule to basically say that a director may train their own staff as long as they were not the director when the administrative penalty was assessed. All right. So if you have an incident at your program and you're placed on an administrative, you're given an administrative penalty, all right, and you're on corrective action, and then the director goes away and a new director comes in, that new director can train their staff as long as they were not the director when the incident occurred. Okay, so I get it, I understand it. I'm surprised it passed. All right. So there you go right there. Oh, Peggy, I am 100% behind you. I'm so glad that you said that. I know that the cameras can be a pain, and I know that there's a lot of anxiety behind cameras in the classroom. 99.9% of the time, they save you. They are definitely more helpful than they are hurtful. All right. I personally would not take the cameras out of the classrooms, but I have a lot of people telling me that's what they're considering. In my experience, time and time again, the cameras are more helpful than they are hurtful, and they definitely save the day instead of hurting it. So I'm glad that you said that, Peggy. Thank you. That was helpful. All right. Senate Bill 1327 is another one that was really interesting to me. But it basically is when you open a brand new program and you are in your initial permit stage, you may hire an interim director that does not meet the education requirements. You're going to have to apply for a waiver. You're going to do that through the online portal with child care regulations. So you do have to apply for the waiver still, but they will grant you the waiver if you're in the initial permitting stage and you have an interim director that does not meet the education requirements. All right. And then there's going to be a time frame for that person to either meet the education requirements or for you to hire a director that does meet that requirement right there. So, and you're going to have 12 months. You're basically going to be able to get that waiver for 12 months. All right. Now remember, here at Tim the Trainer, we offer our Director Credential course, and by taking that 5-day class, you meet the education requirements to be a director. So, but I only teach that class once a month, and so in that case, if you're hiring a director that does not meet the education requirements, you're going to be able to get that waiver until they can be able to take that class. So it's going to be definitely beneficial in those situations. The thing about this one is it's only for programs that are in their initial permitting stage. Okay, so brand new programs there at the very beginning. All right. Once you receive your full permit, this is not going to be applicable to you. So I think that's important to understand right there. All right, Senate Bill 1469, as far as affecting your day-to-day operation of your program, I think that 1469 is probably going to be the biggest one that will change your day-to-day operation. And Senate Bill 1469 is going to add an additional affidavit that has to be completed by applicants. All right, so whenever you have someone that is seeking employment, you're going to have a new pre-employment affidavit for applicants for employment at child care operations. And basically, your applicants are going to fill out this affidavit stating that they have never been charged with abuse or neglect or misconduct with a minor. All right. Now, this is still going to show up on the criminal background check whenever you do that, but they're trying here to prevent these people from even applying for the job. All right. Now, this does go into effect on September 1st, so we're already into this, and it is applicable for any new applicants as of September 1st, 2023. So you do not have to get your current employees to fill this out. It's only for new employees starting September 1st and moving forward. I think that where the problem is going to come in and where a lot of people are going to get caught up on this one is they need to fill out this affidavit during the application process, not after hire. Okay, so whenever you give someone a job application, you need to also give them this affidavit. Or if they come in with a resume, when they hand you the resume, you need to hand them this and have them fill it out. Okay, but it does need to be done during the application process. All right, so that's going to take some process changes. That's going to take some changes to your routine, but hopefully this is going to steer away some of those people that might have the intent of having harm. All right, so I don't see where it needs to be notarized. Oh, I do. Never mind. Just kidding. Here it is. So yes. No, I'm sorry. Take that back. I was wrong. I don't see. I'm going to need to get clarification on that, Denise. This is a little gray. It looks like it needs to be notarized, but it doesn't look like it needs to be notarized. In my opinion, the word affidavit typically is a document that needs to be notarized. But I'm going to need to look at this because I just glanced at this form really quick. And it doesn't look like it needs to be notarized how this is written. But typically when an affidavit is something that needs to be notarized. So we'll get more information on that. That was a good question right there. You can find this document on Child Care Licensing's website. It's Form 2912. If you look at the email that was sent by Child Care Regulations last week, there's a link that you can click on it and it goes straight to the page. Or you can just go to Forms and Documents on Child Care Regulations website, type in 2912 and it pops right up. So yeah, several people are popping in. No, it does not have to be notarized. It doesn't look like it needs to be notarized. It doesn't look like it to me either. It's just the word affidavit is what's throwing me off. See, it's Friday. This is what y'all get for making me have to think on a Friday. Just kidding. All right. So there you go. So the next one, just a couple of things right here. 1849 is in development. So this is not out there just yet. But Senate Bill 1849 is basically going to create a search engine that will search a database for people that have been charged or convicted with abuse or neglect or misconduct with a child. So you'll be able to put in someone's name and search to see if they have any findings. That is currently in development, and so that's what that one is about right there. Okay. Someone is asking, going back to the affidavit, does it need to be turned in anywhere eventually? It's just going to retain in the employee's file. You're just going to retain it in the employee's file. So yeah, Megan is saying, yay, finally. Yeah, I like 1849 too. I definitely think that's a good idea to kind of help, once again, keep people with negative intent out of our programs. We want that right there for sure. All right. On House Bill 1615, this is a really interesting one right here. It's gonna be interesting to see how this one is implemented, but it's basically going to increase pre-K partnerships between licensed child care programs and public schools. So yay on that one. We want that increased partnership between pre-K programs and public schools. And then also professional development opportunities. So if you have a school district that is offering safety trainings, and you are a licensed program providing before and after school care, then they have to make that training available to you as well. All right. Now it only applies to licensed programs that offer before and after school care. So if you don't offer before and after school care, then you may not be able to take part in these training opportunities. All right, but the bill is specifically for school districts that are offering safety trainings, and if you are providing before and after school care to those districts, then they have to make those trainings available to you as well. So that's pretty cool. It's gonna be interesting to see how this is implemented. All right. We don't know what they mean by safety trainings just yet. All right, someone is asking about, would this include CPR? I don't have the answer to that yet. The piece of legislation just basically says safety trainings, and that's pretty much what it says. All right. Brooke is asking, what if you only offer after school care? Then you should be included in this. All right, because it does say licensed child care facilities that offer before and after school care or after school programs that, obviously that's all you do. So yes, that would be included right there. Okay. Great. And then the last thing that we've got right here, and y'all, this one is huge. This is the grand finale. The grand finale right here. Senate Bill 1145. In my 25 years of working in government relations and working to protect licensed child care in the state of Texas, y'all have no idea how long we have worked and fought for this piece of legislation, and this is big. But Senate Bill 1145 is basically going to put Proposition 2 on the November ballot, and all of Texas will be able to vote on Proposition 2, which will allow city and counties to give property tax exemptions to licensed child care programs. Okay, this is ginormous, y'all, but it has to go to public vote. Basically, Senate Bill 1145 was passed to allow this to go on the November ballot, but it has to be passed statewide. Y'all, this is the first time in history that Texans will be able to vote publicly on childcare. So this is big, right? And then there is some criteria on the property tax exemptions being 50 to 100% of property taxes. So it may not be an entire exemption, but it could be a portion of the exemption. It does state in there that you do need to be part of the subsidy system. So you do need to have a certain percentage of subsidized children in your program. So some of you might be excluded just on that criteria. But hey, this is a starting point, y'all. So even if you don't take subsidized children or you don't have the 20%, it's a starting point and it's still a win, all right? But we're moving in the right direction. I have created a flyer that is on my Facebook page. I've posted it earlier in the week that is shareable, that you can start passing this around to your parents. You can start passing this around to your communities. We need to make everyone aware of how these property tax exemptions will benefit licensed childcare programs, and especially coming out of the pandemic and dealing with the increased cost of operating our programs, we need this to continue to be successful, to survive, all right? Our relief money is exhausted. It doesn't look like we're getting any more relief money at this point. So these property tax exemptions is what's going to keep a lot of you afloat. So we need to do a really, really good job of educating our community that we need to get Proposition 2 passed to support and benefit licensed childcare programs. And you might really want to look within your program, kind of take a good look at how much do you pay in property taxes, both, content and actual real estate taxes. How much money are you paying? And then what would you be able to use that money for if you became exempt? Would you be able to increase staff salaries? Would you be able to reduce the cost of childcare for your families? But where are you going to be able to put this money? And as you're talking to your families, as you're talking to your communities, you need to express that. If we can get this passed, here are the possibilities. All right, here's what I could do with this money. Don't make any promises, but just say this is what we could possibly do if these property tax exemptions are granted. But that right there, y'all, that is so big, so big. So definitely take a look on my Facebook page and you can share that little flyer that I made out. There's a couple of other organizations out there that have also made some flyers for you to share. Hey, take them all right? We're going to have to all work together to get this passed right here, but this is a good one. Okay? And Kelly is saying over here, this will allow her to pay her teachers more. Fantastic. There you go. Denise is asking, can I add 2912 to my document page? She can't open it on the state website. Y'all, isn't that fun? I usually have to try about 3 different computers and usually 3 or 4 different web browsers before I can open any document from childcare regulations. I eventually get there, but it is a little bit of a pain. So yes, I have no problem sharing that on my web page. What I have found with any of those forms with childcare regulations, if you right-click and then save as, and save the document like on your desktop, and then open it from your desktop, that's usually where I am successful, all right? But every single time I have to access a document from them, like I said, I usually use 2 or 3 different computers and 3 or 4 different web browsers, and eventually we get it, all right? Good times right there, good times. All right, so hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this eased some of your anxiety on some of these changes. Like I had mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, For those of you that might have popped in late, remember that the legislation has been passed, and even though we have a September 1st effective date on many of these items, child care regulation still has to write them into the standards. The language will be posted on the website first for public comment. So we will have the opportunity to comment and give feedback on the language before it actually is placed into the standards. So there is a process right here before we're going to see this in the book. All right. So kind of look out for that. Whenever that language is out there, it's going to be a couple of months, I'm sure. All right. But we can handle this definitely. All right. There you go. So if you are wanting a certificate of completion for participating in this webinar, I will post a link here in just a second on the Facebook, or you can go directly to my website, timthetrainer.com, and that will be available for you. You can do that, and there is a $5 fee to get the certificate. If you're wanting that, if you don't need a certificate of completion, then you don't need to do anything. So I will post that link here in just a second on the comment screen for those of you that are wanting to do that worksheet to get your certificate. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend. We have Director Credential course next week, so I will not have any Facebook events going on next week since I'll be tied up with Director Credential course, but I will have one the week after. All right, so make sure that you're following me on Facebook to kind of see dates and times and topics and all that good stuff right there. All right, see y'all later. Have a great Friday. Bye.